Welcome once again to the Radical Imagination. I'm your host, Jim Bretos. I'm a sociologist who's taught at John Jay College and Yeshiva University here in New York City. Institutions and organizations of any industrial society are selections and reflections of the larger economic, political, and cultural order which create, form, and control them. A criminal justice system and the practices and policies by a police department within that system is no different. The police who are expected to perform within these departments often grapple in their everyday duties with the contradictions and failures of a larger political and economic system in America that practices structural racism and class warfare on the poor. Officers who question these arrangements are often ridiculed and punished for their resistance that they show to the police abuses set up by the political elites and departmental hierarchies of the very system. Sometimes a brief moment and opportunity occurs where there is some possible transformation of that structure. It occurs usually when individuals in the system begin to stand up and say enough is enough. It's when they've come to the point that resistance becomes the only way that allows them to live with themselves. As student free speech activist Mario Savio put it in a 1964 rally at Berkeley, there's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart, that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears, upon the levels, upon the wheels, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. There's a terrific new documentary just out that portrays one of these brief moments and opportunities. It won a special jury award for social impact at the Sundance Film Festival and captures, illuminates, and challenges us all about the deep, perhaps intractable problems of policing in New York City and beyond. The documentary is called Crime Plus Punishment, and it focuses on the background and meaning of the quota system policy of the New York Police Department. Not long ago, members of the force were expected to meet monthly quotas for arrests and summonses. Though the practice was outlawed in 2010, and earlier this year, the NYPD instituted mandatory no-quota training for all its officers, the film's director, Maing, amasses evidence and testimony showing that it has persisted by different names to this very day. Longtime native New Yorkers, particularly citizens of color and including the police themselves, have known of the so-called unwritten and unspoken quota system for years, and they would appreciate how the film documents and espouses in a meticulous way what they've already known in their everyday experiences for years. Maing has created a masterful, powerful, and suspenseful film that focuses on and follows a group of officers known as the NYPD 12, mostly Latino and African-American officers, as they go public with their case, holding news conferences, sitting for television interviews. The 12, in a class action lawsuit, argue that they had been pressured to meet illegal quotas and punished when they refused to comply. Supervisors are recorded threatening reprisals against the officers, some of whom are then disciplined for trivial infractions, given undesirable assignments, and blocked when they seek promotion. The documentary offers a powerful and thorough critique of American law enforcement by digging into individual lives and circumstances, allowing affected individuals to speak for themselves. We're brought into the daily lives of police officers, some of them veterans with decades of service behind them, who are willing to risk their careers for what they believe is right. They face fear, frustration, and agonizing uncertainty as the case proceeds. One involved officer admits that a rebellion and possible movement like this happens maybe once every 100 years. We're honored and proud to have 3 of the NYPD 12 and the director on the Radical Imagination today. Crime Plus Punishment is a film about their work, risk, and sacrifice required to make the ideal of equal justice under the law anything close to reality. We stand with them for their moral integrity that they show in resisting and exposing the apparatus of the machine that many of the rest of us also know to be corrupt and wrong. So welcome Officers Waller, Polanco, Gonzalez, Director Steve Maing to the Radical Imagination. And before we meet them, here's a brief trailer to the movie Crime Plus Punishment.
The department says there are no quotas.
Well, I can tell you there are quotas in the NYPD.
Truly explosive allegations.
They're coming from police officers who are part of what's being called the NYPD 12, who filed a class action lawsuit in federal court.
This is not just another lawsuit. 12 cops willing to step up like this, because you're not going to get this again for 100 years.
Hold it for 1 quick second. Now to record.
From the beginning, I saw how this job was. It was not about helping people, it's about numbers.
Who's targeted most? The minority community.
And all this got dismissed.
All this got dismissed.
Once you start getting arrested, it goes in your record. They're taking away jobs that they could be future lawyers, future cops.
Supervisors that are using police officers as a revenue-producing agent for the city. This system has to change.
We all put our jobs on the line. We put everything on the line.
This is something that was placed on my desk.
You're still a police officer. And there are people in our community that don't work with police officers, period.
This is David versus Goliath. Without public support, we're nothing.
How long do you think you're going to keep the powder keg cap on?
I believe in struggle, and with struggle comes change.
Can the NYPD be what cops are supposed to be?
Ooh,
Wow.
chills.
Crime Plus Punishment.
Wow.
Thank you so very, very much, all of you, for being here. And I just am honored to have you here. This is a masterful movie. It's one of the most important movies on police. The police culture has come out in many, many years. So thank you again. And
thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you for having us.
Tell us how you all got involved in this and your years of service.
Wow. I guess my name is Detective Waller, retired. Wow, 21 and 3/4 years as a, I would say detective, but we were all police officers. And I was undercover for many years. I did that for close to 6 years. I noticed, quotas when I was undercover, and it's just something that I spoke out then, and it's something literally I spoke out about till the day I retired, which was 2 years ago. I'll pass this to my fellow officers.
My name is Officer Polanco, Adil Polanco. I was a police officer for about 11 years. My problem with the police department was me coming from where I came from, Washington Heights, in the 90s, and how crime was then and what was expected of me. If I would have become a drug dealer, I would have not surprised anybody. I was given the opportunity to go to school. I was given the opportunity to educate myself.
Did you go to John Jay?
No,
no.
I didn't go to John Jay. Not every cop go to John Jay.
Okay, all right, okay. All right.
So basically, me taking the opportunity away from these kids to do that, it didn't feel right. Putting somebody in jail simply to meet a number, putting somebody in jail to benefit myself for overtime, not knowing the damage that I'm causing to another kid or another family. Yeah. Led me to rebel against the very powerful, very racist, very intimidating force. And I don't regret it. There've been a ton of retaliation, but I stand my ground and I refuse to be part of something that is so corrupt and so negative and that can cause so much pain to some kids.
So it wasn't a decision that came, just overnight here. This was years and years in the making.
I used to work for the school system. I wanted to be a cop. I wanted to be a youth officer. I wanted to go back to Washington Heights and work with the kids, help the community, find some kids that come from the Dominican Republic or from someplace, and give them an outlet, giving them an option. This is what you can do. You don't have to sell drugs. You don't have to, you know, fill the status quo. You don't have to do what people expect you to do. Do the opposite, and this is how you can do it. That's what I wanted to do, and I was blind. I became a police officer. I was like, oh my God, this is, you know, this is what I wanted to do. But when we faced what the reality of the job was, and my moral standard, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Sandy, same thing with you?
Same thing. I became a police officer because I wanted to serve my community. I wanted to, you know, put the bad guys in jail. But when I saw that there was machinery putting a lot of people, by masses, behind bars, writing summonses, making money off of it, and, you know, hurting the community, you know, I turned away from this system. And, you know, as you can see in the first scene of the film, Polanco had come out with the stop and frisk, so I looked forward to meet with him and Serrano, who was also part of that trial.
We're going to get to that first clip. So that gives us a little bit of an idea of how you all are not anti-cop. You want to help people. You're very idealistic young men. You know, not as young as you were, but
you know, we all swore an oath, and it's like, you know, you swear an oath to serve and protect, and once you know, as when you get out the academy, you don't know. It takes a while before this hits you because you're new and you don't know the job. But after a while, after a few months, after a year, even now, I see, like, you know, I was working with my partner was off, you know, shortly before I retired, and one of his so I was assigned to work with one of the new guys. This guy was like literally out the academy, and he says, you know, at that time I had close to 20-something years on. So he says, wow, man, you know, I'm on the lieutenant's list for no activity. I mean, this is a good guy, literally out the academy. He said, yeah, well, man, you know, I'm already on the lieutenant's list for low activity, and you know, I don't even know how to write a goddamn summons yet. I was like, just out the academy.
That's where he was at.
Yeah, that's the mentality
day one.
that he had right out
that
the
they're
academy.
being trained, and that's today.
This is going on now.
This has been gone. You experienced it 20 years ago, 11 years. How long were you in?
16.
16. So wow.
It's from the Serpico era, from every scandal that the department goes through. They just
like every 20 years.
Yeah, they just just find a way to redefine it. Like, my struggle started in 2010 with the quota. They changed the name from quota to productivity.
Let's just stop right there, and we'll get to Steve in just a minute. Help our audience understand, although the New Yorkers understand.
Refresh.
What is a quota system? What is it that you're talking about here?
A quota system is simply the department.
You had to experience it. You were involved.
The department, like they try to privatize the police department. I swore to a service.
Okay.
I wanted to be an officer, and I took an oath to service.
Serve the community.
Serve the community as a service. People should not be paying for the police department to perform. It's not.
Okay, now what do you mean by that? Now, what happens?
That they kind of privatize the police department, meaning that they have productivity goals.
Business model.
That's their
business.
That's their model. Productivity. What are we selling? Handcuffs? Police records?
Yeah, it's a great point.
We're not selling anything. We should be helping the community, not sucking money out of their pockets. So when they say productivity goals, that's a business model. That's not a service model.
You're expected to produce revenues for the system.
And then what they want to say, they came up with a magic number. They want officers to have at least one arrest a month and to write at least 20 summonses a month. It's not an option. It's not. You don't have an option as a cop. You have to. You have to. But what happened?
Or else what? What happened?
You suffer the consequences. They will go after you. They will go after your job. They will hurt you where it hurt the most. They will split you from your partner. They push you in a low evaluation. They push you in a psychological evaluation sometimes. They try to deem you crazy.
What's wrong?
Anything that they can do to make your life impossible, they will do, including trying to fire you. So when you're a police officer and you have a family, you have a special needs child, you need the medical. You cannot afford not to have medical coverage. You're gonna have somehow bow to them because wife is gonna remind you.
Yeah. Keep your mouth shut. We need to pay the bills.
Yeah, you know, family's gonna remind you. Your mother's gonna remind you. Your father's gonna remind you. Be careful with what you're doing because we need to pay these bills.
You know, can I just say one thing before we go any further? I just want people to know that none of us, that actually all of us, we actually loved our jobs. We chose, you know, it takes a special person to be a police officer. It's not for everybody. But we chose that job because we felt the need to help people. So I actually loved my job, and it was like, it's like the most needed of all government jobs through my eyes.
We had our heart broken.
I mean, you know, you swear to protect, and when you go there, everything changes. So what he's saying is that the police department is basically a business. You know, like you work in Saks Fifth Avenue or you work in Macy's. I mean, you can't just work there and not sell clothes. I mean, so being a police officer, you have to bring in bodies. Today, 2018, this is still going on.
Does this cut across political administrations? Does it make much difference who the mayor?
It's not new. It's nothing new. It's nothing new.
16 years you were involved.
Yes.
So you saw this, all of you
throughout the whole Bloomberg administration.
Bloomberg
was the
De Blasio.
De Blasio. He had made adjustments. De Blasio is the one that have made the most adjustments.
Explain that to us.
He decided that he was gonna, for example, he was gonna drop the stop and frisk lawsuit that Bloomberg still wanted to go after. He decided that he wanted to
still wanted to pursue.
So that we have to give him that. We cannot say that he, you know, it was a choice that he had. He could have fighted. They have made.
But there was enough political pressure, right, on him because people began to understand the problems with
his whole campaign was about stop and frisk.
Exactly.
He ran his campaign on stop and frisk.
Right. Okay.
So they have made adjustment. They have changes. Changes are changes. Adjustments are adjustments. So what he made, he have made a lot of adjustment. People, for example, the marijuana arrest, they decided not to process as many people. But how many millions of people have gone through the system before they decided that people should not be going to
jail? And
jail.
still disproportionately people of color.
Of color, of course.
Right. So it's broken windows. What's the new term they're using now? We were talking about the
quality of life.
It's a game of words. You know, it's more like, you know, language can change reality. You know, so you can appease people by using language. So you change names.
Productivity goals. Performance goals.
Exactly.
It's kind of like street crime. Like when they had street crime and street crime killed somebody, they would just change the name of the group so everybody's happy, and then they would have the same cops doing the same thing but rename them something else. So that's what's basically going on with the quotas. You know, they just wording it differently, but it's the same thing going on. Cops got to bring in bodies.
But when you see,
and they direct that to certain areas, usually minority neighborhoods, because when you go into the Jewish neighborhoods and the you know other neighborhoods, it's total different policing. It's much more aggressive in neighborhoods of color. You know?
Yeah, but when you see when the language changes throughout the years, and the same things keep on happening, you know, language can take you only so far. Like now, you know, there are some structures within the department that need to change. That's what we're looking for. We're looking to get all that power from the handful of people, the protected ones.
That's what how do members of the community see you? How do you feel as you walk the streets of the community that you wanted to help and serve? After what you've been, you know, programmed to do, what do they see? Do they respect you in the same way? Do they fear you?
There's a lot of
resentment.
Yeah, I was the type of cop just like Derek. I talk to people, and it's amazing what you can accomplish by talking to people. But sometimes we approach people, a little kid, I will go shake the hand, and the mom will grab it away. Don't talk to those pigs. And at the beginning, I used to get very frustrated until I understand why is the resentment. You cannot slap somebody so many years, slapping, and then one day decide to come give them a kiss. It doesn't work like that. So sometimes we understand, being the color we are, we understand the resentment from people. At the beginning, it was frustrating because I just want to talk to you. Hey, how you doing? Sometimes I want to buy a kid an ice cream or do something like that, and they look at me like I'm an alien. Like cops don't do that. I'm like, you know.
Yeah. Let's bring Steve in on this. How did you get involved in this? Hey, Steve. No, I mean, these guys have long stories here, but we want to know. You put this together. How did you meet these people? How did it come that you put this incredible film together that's playing at IFC, right? In New York City.
Just opened
this
IFC until
IFC in the Village.
Yes.
until September 6th, as of now.
Okay, as of now.
We're hoping with the great attendance, it'll get extended.
It has to, and then we know it will.
So around the stop and frisk trial era, Floyd versus City of New York, my producing partner Ross Tuttle and I were reporting on the stop and frisk issue and doing some nonfiction content around that. These are shorter pieces that were looking at the concerns of both the community and...
You're a native New Yorker, or?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so you've been aware of that, but okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and discriminatory policing practice has been a conversation that the nation has been divided on, not just New York, for decades. I mean,
that's a great point, and forgive me for interrupting, but what you're reporting here is not, you are part of the NYPD 12.
But it's nationwide.
It is nationwide, and what happens here is so important in its influence everywhere, including Ferguson.
Yeah, New York has a ripple effect.
So that's why this is...
I think Sandy said it. Ferguson is New York on steroids. That's
and we got to get to some of those clips, but go ahead. Yeah, Steve.
So it was interesting to us because the federal judge had ruled that the NYPD had in a discriminatory fashion used stop and frisk in minority neighborhoods and overused it, in fact. So everyone thought 2014, with Mayor de Blasio coming in on a police reform platform with a reform-minded commissioner, would change all of this. And
bringing Bratton
in,
replacing Kelly.
William Bratton for his second term.
Right.
And what we were hearing on the ground in the community, as well as with increasing numbers of officers who were coming out and wanting to speak, was that was very far from the truth. And that, in a way, things were getting worse because the problems now were being acknowledged. This idea that stop and frisk was assumed to be the core problem, when in fact the quota at large was. This idea that the problems were being acknowledged, but the reforms were not substantial enough.
Right.
So we really felt, and I was really inspired by, the early officers we met, Adil, Pedro, and Derek, to do a project. This would be our fourth project about policing that put a face on not just the officers who were living through this kind of trauma, but more importantly, the collateral damage, which is, the community.
That's so important what you're bringing out here too. The trauma that the officers are feeling. And I, again, teaching at John Jay, I was told the same thing by the officers themselves, how the community had increased their disrespect for them, made their job harder. And so I think that's a very important thing to bring out here. Not just you 12 here, or 3 of the 12. I mean, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of officers who feel very deeply and aligned with you, but there is a great issue of what's going to happen. And that's why this film is so important, why we need to spread the word and get it out there, and people in the field need to spread it. And why don't we, I know there's so much to get across here, but we've got some clips to show. So let's do the first clip and then we'll comment about that.
Sounds great.
Okay, is that okay with you, Steve?
Yeah, please.
Okay, all right. So here is clip 1, how this all got started. In a meeting in the diner, I think it is, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You've been going through similar stuff that I've been going through, and he went through. I just want you to explain to Blanco here everything that's been going on.
Just because I didn't bring the amount of summonses and arrest that they wanted me to bring to the precinct. I've been punished and retaliated against.
And you thought that after all I've been through, that after all he's been through, that after all the shit that we've been through, that exposing stop and frisk, exposing their numbers machine, we thought that it was over, but they still was doing the same shit. That's the same fuck up.
But it's worse because you came out, right? First it was Schoolcraft. They buried his story. You came out, they buried your story. I went to federal court and then they buried my story.
We know what's going on out there. And we know what's hurting cops, and we know the morale of cops is very low. Everybody that you meet, everybody's fuck this job, fuck this fucking job, fuck this fucking job. That's a morale. That's what. That's how everybody feels.
Yeah. I've heard the lieutenant give him a quota. I heard the sergeant threaten him if he didn't follow the quota. If nothing works, then we're going to eventually have to sue. If they give us no recourse, we're going to have to sue and we have to make some change.
I feel like we have to tell you this because once you're out, you cannot go back.
No. They'll eat you alive.
You can't go back.
We're strong.
They're not your friends.
As a unit. But
they're not your friends.
Individually, we have to be strong too.
They're not your friends.
And we also, we rely on each other. Something bad happens to you, you call me, you call him. Before you lash out at anybody, do not trust anybody else. They're going to come after you in many ways. You got to be prepared.
Wow, got to be prepared. Lots going on there.
This
was the initial meeting that
this
got
is,
this whole thing.
This is through Steve, through Ross.
Okay.
I was the first one out, and then they saw, and this is what we expect. We will love for other officers out there to be the next NYPD 12, maybe the NYPD 20 or 50 or 100. That is doable. They saw me on TV, they saw me going through the struggle, and you know, it's nice to see that you're not crazy, that you're not losing your mind, that there are people out there who are willing. I was inspired by Yvette Walton. You know, she was one of the female officers back in Amadou Diallo case.
Yeah.
And her story, they came up, and so now we're trying to organize. Polanco can not only do it by himself, we can help. And when they came along, I was like, please, by all means, come over, working together, organizing ourselves together. Eventually, they came in, Derek came in. Eventually, we got 12 of us. For me, this is like, wow, finally. You know, it was very nice to see everybody come together. So what we're trying to see, our unions are not helping. The department is not helping. Everything that's supposed out there to help is not helping. The politicians, we went through so many politicians trying to look for help, to seek for help. We're getting ignored by everybody.
Why?
Because
what are they so afraid of? What is?
You know, that's. Go ahead,
yeah, what are they afraid of? What they're afraid of is what Patrick Lynch was selling, what the union was selling, and what the people who are pro-police were selling, is that if they stop and frisk, the city's going to go back to the 80s. And I'm sure you heard this.
All chaos will happen.
Yeah, so they were scaring people.
Right.
So this is the funny part. Stop and frisk 4 years ago.
Right.
90% higher, millions of people getting stopped, crime is low. And they able to sell that, and people in the street are like, you know what? If crime is gonna be this low, keep stop and frisk. But guess what? Not today, last year, stop and frisk is down almost 99%. Crime is even lower.
Right.
So, and people couldn't believe that. So that's why people were afraid that I don't want to throw my name out there as a politician, then crime goes up, and then it's gonna be my name, they're gonna blame me for the city.
So they substitute something else using a different term.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, the problem is that this is something that's rooted into America. I mean, the whole quota system, it's rooted into the police department. It's so hard to break things that's rooted into America, and to break up things that's rooted into the police department. You know,
the culture, and the culture, the larger culture
of the police department.
Economic.
I mean, this quota brings millions of dollars, you know, to the city of New York. It's actually in their budget, the money that's produced from locking up bodies in the neighborhoods of color. You know, it's in the budget.
So there's a lot of people making a lot of money on it.
Going back, I just want to add one.
Oh yeah.
In terms of crime levels dropping, also the city likes to take credit for that, and the department in particular. But crime levels nationally, internationally have been dropping for the last 30 years, and so, you know, the department would pivot and say, well, you know, that's a result of our broken windows policing theory, and we have to make note that the crime levels dropping are not a result necessarily of the current policing practice. That what's happening as a result of the current policing practice is there's an erosion of the trust between community and police. That these guys are, I've seen them all on the job, I've seen them all work their asses off. These are, you know, not what one would easily like to call lazy cops. They are out there doing the work, addressing crime conditions, and frankly, like, you know, dealing with the public in the most positive way. I see people come up and hug these guys. talk to them, share their problems. That
real true community policing.
You know, the job of a police officer is to be physically present somewhere. If you're physically present in front of a bank, nobody's going to rob the bank. If you're physically present in front of a turnstile, nobody's going to jump the turnstile. So of course crime is going to go down. But they want you to be like hiding behind some pole or jump out of a room and go and grab somebody when they jump the turnstile. That's not the way policing is supposed to be done.
Going back to what Polanco and Maing was saying, not only there's a quota, but there's also a manipulation of the reports, downgrading of felonies. So that's the way that the city has, the crime has dropped. They have manipulated the numbers. With something that's a felony, they turn it into misdemeanor.
Yeah, misreading the.
So basically, misclassifying.
It's so easy. Right. It's like everything we're saying here, you can research this yourself. It's not like stuff that we're just coming off the top of our head. This is stuff you can research. Newspaper. I mean, you can go to the police department files. And this is stuff that any person can just research.
I remember Bloomberg saying that he wanted to go down as the greatest mayor that the city ever seen. He's there bragging about robberies are down, burglaries are down, I brought crime down, and we are in the street telling somebody who had burglarized that they didn't get burglarized. That the report is not going to be taken for burglary, it's going to be taken for trespassing. So that burglary never happened. When somebody walked in the precinct to report a burglary back in 2010, 2011, 2012, some people got ticket for disorderly conduct because they got so frustrated about the cop telling him, I'm not taking your report. It was negligent of you to leave the computer. You cannot afford the computer. How can you afford it? I've been to places where they told people, you live in housing. There's no way you could afford a 40-inch TV. That didn't happen. And the classification will be lost property.
And it gives false sense of safety.
So now Bloomberg's gonna
false sense of safety.
Yeah. So now Bloomberg's gonna brag that robbery is lower, that everything is lower. When in fact it's not lower. We're just not taking the report. So at all costs, they want to look good. That's the job of a politician. They want to look good at all costs.
Let's see clip 2 here.
The communities are going to see y'all as cops, right? Your cops are coming out, but you're still cops. And just watching a clip, you're not going to get community support because they're going to be like, yo, they're still cops putting me up against the wall, right? So my question is, what is a plan to kind of talk? If I'm like, yo, these cops want to meet y'all, they're going to be like, I don't even feel safe talking to these cops.
These are the cops that are standing up against it.
I completely hear you, right?
I don't know how we can make that message.
Well, that's what I'm asking y'all, right? That's what I'm asking y'all.
Can I say something real quick? It's not really about what you guys are saying. We support what you say. It's about painting a broader picture around how this will impact us in the community long term. And so, how will this lead to less black bodies being violated? How will this lead towards understanding self-determination and black liberation, right? And so it's, what is that message that is going to help people to understand that supporting you is supporting their cause and their mission, right?
Absolutely.
You know what it is? People have to get to know us and see how we are. Because you know what? Every community police, either Brooklyn or South Bronx, we know how to interact with people. We know how to solve people's problems.
But I think what she's saying is something different.
Yeah.
And I understand what she's saying. What she's saying is you're still a police officer.
Right.
And there are people in our community, there are people who I called to come to this meeting that said, I will not be there because I don't work with police officers, period, at all.
Right.
And they didn't come. And the ones who told me they were coming that are not here, I know exactly why they didn't show up, right? You all may be sitting here thinking, we here. What do you mean, why? Yeah. But there are other elements to how you engage the community that some folks on the face won't understand. And that's why I say back to us as the activists, what do we think the messaging should be?
We're not here to endorse anything with police departments. Minister Farrakhan has said to us, there are many good officers, but too few to stand up. You have chosen to stand up.
That's right.
You have chosen to put your livelihood on the line. You have chosen to lose your job that protects your children, my sister. That's why we came to sit at the table.
Apparently you all have had some kind of strategy. What would you like for us to do, and how would you like for us to do it?
The public support is what lets the city, the state, and the national government know this is not just another lawsuit. Because you're not going to get this again for 100 years. 12 cops willing to step up like this, put their careers on the line. So in order for this to be taken serious, we need you. We've already been enduring retaliation for not conforming to the quota. But at this point, they're going to try to fire us. They're going to set us up. They have tactics with internal affairs. They don't have to follow the law. You know, who you going to call them?
There's no law.
They are the law. You know, exactly. So at this point, you know, giving me this post and killing my evaluation, listen, if I never have to be promoted so my people can be treated better, you can keep your promotion.
Wow. So now you're dealing with the diverse community response to what you're trying to do and gain their support. And so it's sort of a mixed bag there too, right? Or?
This is really funny, and this is the picture that I get out of this. The mayor now, the chiefs now, everybody speak about community. The first word out of their mouth is community. Community policing, community event, community. This is the topic of the... Do you see that community? Do you see the level of trust they have for cops? It's zero.
And by the way, this is the members of the Justice League.
This is members of the Justice League. This is
very progressive.
This is reverends. This is people from the community who we are trying to come to and to say to them, we are police officers, yes, but we are not them. We are not the system. We are basically against the system. And they trying to say, we understand you to the level that we are here sitting with you, something that they never done before, but they need us to understand that the public trust is not there, that we have to gain it, because
so you got it from all sides.
Because no matter what we do, people are still seeing us as police officers. And it was hard for some of us to understand it. Like, what you mean? I'm here, I'm exposed in my job. I say, yeah, but you're still a cop.
It's a bigger picture, yeah.
So they help us understand that in order to build a bridge, people need to know about us more, people need to, but it tells you about the hypocrisy of the mayor's office and the police commissioner about according to them, the relation between cops and police is beautiful. We like everybody's holding hands, which is not. These people, they have a big level of distrust that we cannot even ignore, and we know why the level.
And they can play around with words, like I said before, throw the word community out there, and make people believe, give them a sense that, you know, we're working with you. And for now, until the whole thing is gone, like this whole film, like, you know, they hope that people forget. But what happens with this film is going to be on for a lot of years. And no matter how much they throw the word community and that, you know, police officers working together with the people, those elements that make the quota system possible are still there. And that's what they're trying to protect. Okay? The mechanism, the mechanics, okay? And where is that? We know where that is. Okay, it's in rules and regulations. It's within the bureaus. It's embedded in the internal affairs and their rules. It's embedded in the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Bureau within the department. What happens? You make a claim, they put it through the shredder.
You squash it.
And squash it.
The other thing
can I add one quick thing?
Yeah, Steve.
You know, having observed these guys for many, many years, you know, in some cases I've known, you know, some of the officers almost 10 years. These guys are not, they haven't chosen an easy road. And so if anybody were, you know, out in the public were to want to claim, oh, this is being done for, you know, ulterior motives, personal gain, you know,
to
perhaps
get back at the system.
To get back, they have a vendetta or that, you know, they just don't want to do the work. If you didn't want to do the work, you would not put yourself in such a precarious professional and also personal life situation. I mean, these guys have chosen a hard road where even the advocates that you would ideally want them to come rushing to their support have a tremendous difficulty turning the corner.
Resisting
and really believing that,
overture.
That their constituents will support them, even if these organizers, as you saw in that scene, do. And so, you know, there's this kind of question of like, what will it take for officers who are trying to like shed light on real common sense reform measures to actually convince lawmakers and public policy makers, academics, and the public at large to support them. I mean, you know, as Edwin says, this you don't get this all the time.
And we can only lose from this because, for example, people...
What do you mean?
We have nothing to gain. The retaliation that we go through, the things, sometimes we question ourselves, like, is this even worth it? Do I really need to go through this or just keep my mouth shut and just make my life easy? But then you hit it with your conscience where, you know, some people just go with the flow, not because they want to be part of it, not because they enjoy it, but it's easier to go with it than to fight it.
You know, I thought about stopping this. I thought about stopping this journey many times. I'm like, you know, are we ever going to get anywhere? You know, this is not just for us. I mean, we have so many officers that come to us, you know, black, white. They'll shake your hand behind doors. They'll speak to you in the locker room. But it takes a lot to put your face on out there like this. You know, so there's hundreds of officers, not only at NYPD. I mean, we've traveled, we've met
Houston.
other officers in other cities that say, wow, man, you know, I'm going through this. But officers don't have any place to go to. Who are they going to tell? They're going to go to, you know, you can't go to the police chaplain.
Same thing will happen to in their departments as well.
You can't go to the police chaplain. You can't go to your supervisor because they
you think your union is the easy way out.
Union is not really helping.
They work for the police department.
You're left with the media.
That's it. The
filmmakers.
That's it. Documentaries. I mean, Steve have been our support. We have the utmost respect. I cannot say it enough. We love Steve. Steve became family to us. He was the outlet that we needed. We can have the perfect story. If he wouldn't do the masterpiece that he did, and he was absolutely a masterpiece, our story would have been buried. We put a story into the wrong person's hand. He cared about us. That's why we respect him so much. Because anybody can just do the film. I got my film, you guys go your way. Steve have never left us. And I'm so grateful that he's here with us, he's been with us. We call Steve. Some other documentary I'll be part of, I don't even know the persons, they disappeared.
They're on to the next project.
Shouldn't have taken 5 years or Steve making a film for us to, you know, to resolve this problem 5 years ago.
There should have been a sustained public conversation about the earliest claims these guys made.
If you're talking about police reform, for example, right? And the mayor came in and police reform. Who's in charge of community affairs? Chief whatever, whatever. Chief whatever, whatever was a captain when the quota was going on. And the quota in his system, in his precinct went 3 times higher when he was a captain.
So how does he come to define community affairs?
This is they wanted to say that they want people more involved with the community. They want the captain to talk to the community. They want the cops to be more friendly. But
you're doing that.
But the problem is, if you want to do that, wouldn't it be fair to say, Officer Polanco, for example, started talking about community policing when it was prohibited? Detective Waller has 23 years working in Brooklyn, and he has a quality to work in the community. Edwin Raymond is a sergeant that should be working for the mayor's office.
You know what? The bottom line is that
But they have the wrong people trying to do the right job. The people who they have now trying to reform the police department were the same predators that were hunting people down 5, 6 years ago, and now they're trying to be friends. They were slapping people, now they're trying to shake their hand.
Okay, they're just disguising this whole thing, this whole scheme, you know, which is what I just told you earlier with EEO and within the department and the internal affairs, and this whole, you know, all this machinery within the department that is all meant to protect the quota system. You know,
so you're talking about structures here.
It's a structure.
It goes beyond the individual.
It's a system.
And just we're gonna see the third and final clip in just a few minutes here, just to get us onto that as well. So now you're talking about institutions, organizations, structures, criminal justice academies that are rooted in the sort of careerism you're talking about, who have a stake in getting the grants that will, you know, in a little modified way, study the same old, and the same old people are being controlled and manipulated in different ways.
They don't believe that a police officer can be a police officer by doing his job. He was filling out reports for 20-something years. I was filling out reports and going to emergency and taking people in pieces here and there. He was doing the same thing. When we came out, the police department looked at all we did, and they couldn't find a mistake. So these disgruntles right here knew what they were doing in the street. So they want to label us lazy because instead of me doing my police work, I'm going to go to the corner. You know what? Let me take that kid in. I handcuff him. That's it. That's my day. At the end of the day,
you were seen as real traitors.
At the end of the day, when I take the kids in, my evaluation is going to be twice better than Derek, who was running around all day answering radio runs, who was preventing fights, who was, you know, barely A because he couldn't get
That's not going to come up in the productivity numbers.
What you do, your police work don't count. What count is how many summonses, how many arrests. That's all that counts. Everything else is
bodies.
So the job does have like community officers that's supposed to go to like the different franchises in the business and introduce themselves, but they basically put who they want in those positions, because our immediate supervisors who come and check up on us on a daily basis, they scratch a book. I would say our supervisors, the sergeants, they know us better than the lieutenants and the captains, because they're always there, so they know, you know, what each officer's specialty is. You know, some guys they're just like aggressive officers. Every day they'll come and arrest, and then other guys, they like diffuse situations. So the supervisors basically know their officers because they're the platoon sergeants. So to get these specific jobs within the precinct, you got to be an active officer. You got to be a worker. If you want to be that community officer or that plainclothes officer, you got to bring them numbers. So everything's pretty much based on numbers, not, you know, you found a legitimate missing, or, you know, you solved this crime, or, you know, has nothing to do with nothing. This is all about numbers. It's a business
and political machine.
It's all about numbers.
Let's see if we can get the third clip to the film.
Sorry to bother you. Pero no la molesta. I'm investigator Manuel Gomez. I'm a private investigator. I'm out here looking at some cops from the 4-2 that have been harassing people. So if you guys have anybody, any young bloods that have any problem, day or night. So what's your first name?
Jamari.
I'm private investigator Manuel Gomez.
All right, nice to meet you.
So go ahead. So what happened to you?
I was walking out and they grabbed me like this. Then when they put their handcuffs on me, they walked me to the car. And they're like, I'm like, what am I being charged for? I was asking the whole time. When I got to see my lawyer told me I was getting charged with criminal possession of a weapon.
But there was no weapon.
There was no weapon. They just told my mom to come get me. I'm 17.
Okay. And this got dismissed.
Yeah, I have no criminal records.
Hey, how are you?
Wait, what was that?
No, he's filming me. No, hold on, let me finish. I'm not that ugly. I'm not that ugly. No. He's filming me because I'm doing an investigation. What's your first name? Shaheem what? McCarter, what's up? All right, come on in, don't worry, I don't bite, man. Get this shit off, man. Sit down with me. What's wrong with you? Here, hold on a second. Listen, don't worry about it. Don't be sorry, I'm not that ugly. Listen, here's the deal. We're putting a major lawsuit against the department for violating the state law on quotas. So what I want to know is, how many arrests do you have that were dismissed?
All of them. Every one of them I got arrested for. I never got arrested for the whole.
And they were all dismissed?
All of them got dismissed.
Okay, how many would you say? 5, 4, 6?
Probably more than 5.
About 7?
Yeah, probably around that, like 7 times.
7 times. I want you to go in the courthouse, bring your ID, and you're gonna get all the cases that says dismissed. Okay? And you're gonna bring them to me. You're gonna call me up and says, Manuel, I got my cases, right? And then I'm gonna file a lawsuit for all those false arrests. All right, I want you to do me a solid. I want you to go in with your mom, and I want to go in there and tell her that I'm gonna be your man now. All right, you're gonna be my stepson. All right? All right, I am crazy. I'm crazy, but I'm good. You got a problem getting paid? You got a problem getting justice? All right, so you'll join the family?
There's the human face of the community in your film, right? It doesn't get any more poignant and powerful than that.
It's magic, because you put in a face to the number.
Yeah.
You can say 100,000 people got wrongfully stopped.
Right.
200,000 people won't, but when you count them 1, 2, 3, and you see the faces, it's priceless to see.
You couldn't even see the face. You saw the body language there. But he came out.
It's a distrust. They don't have a trust. And if it's not for Investigator Gomez who reached out to this kid, who is?
Right.
Who's trying to help these kids out?
And he's helped so many. He's helped dozens and dozens.
He's done a great job.
This type of policing, I mean, years after years after years, even if it's not affecting you, your neighbors see it, your children see it. It just tears up the community. I mean, it gets to the point where people don't even want to come into the precinct and report their crimes anymore because they just don't want to be around police.
It demeans all of us. It dehumanizes everyone. We pay an enormous price for this.
And for a young person like Pedro Hernandez, who we haven't
Yeah.
actually gotten to feature yet in this program,
Right.
who was fighting off, I believe, 8 falsified arrest charges.
Right.
Even one falsified arrest charge that
And
is
one
going to
life.
bring you through the court systems in this kind of like cyclical Orwellian nightmare that is so hard to extract yourself from, because there's tremendous pressure to take a plea deal. And, you know, the reason for that is because it's going to get you out of jail. It's going to get you to Rikers.
He was in jail for how long?
12 months.
12
months.
This kid.
And after 12 months, no sorry, no anything, no apology, just, you know,
home.
the DA decides to drop the charges because it turns out there wasn't any sufficient evidence. I mean, what kind of system would allow even that single person to go through a nightmare like that? I mean, you know, we can't even begin to talk about the personal, psychological, emotional trauma that it had on a young person like Pedro Hernandez.
And it's the reason
And you can
why we
assume
came
it
out.
did, because this is a young man who was an A student. He received a full scholarship during his time in Rikers, was helping other young people get over their beef, right? There's a lot of tension within the prison system, and study for the GED. This is a good kid. And so we have good cops making claims on the one hand. We have good people, good families who are on the receiving end of kind of like policing system and model that is unfairly targeting them at a rate of, what I found in some recent NYPD data was that, and I actually updated the film as a result, is that it's at rate of over 5.6 to 1 that the minority communities are being criminally summoned more than white communities for some of the top earning summonses, like open container, marijuana possession.
Yeah, quality of life.
Quality of life
So-called
infractions that can turn your life upside down.
And we need to
So
turn this upside down. We only have a minute to go.
Okay,
we want to make sure.
This is what we. This is how. This is the reason for the film. This is the reason.
Absolutely.
This is not about us. This is about the community.
Absolutely.
This is about the hundreds and thousands of kids out there getting abused by the system.
And the film
we are standing
can be
out for them.
seen
in Hulu.
But also
yeah, absolutely.
IFC.
We're very
You
excited.
must see it. Everyone must see this.
We're doing our local New York City premiere launch at IFC, and it's playing until September 6th. We're hoping with more attendance, it'll get extended additional weeks.
It
but,
absolutely has to.
You know, because that will help send a message, and it's also going to, it is available on Hulu streaming.
And if anybody want to host a community screening, we are.
Yeah, if you go to crimeandpunishmentfilm.com or crime and punishment.
Crime plus punishment.
No, crime and punishment.
Okay. And punishment.
doc.com.
Okay.
There's a place where you can request a screening.
Okay.
For your community, and we'll send you over some resource materials and discussion guides, things like that.
And we're going to do our part in this, and we're going to get people like Michelle Alexander and Cornel West and Reverend William Barber to all see this and many more, because this has to be seen.
And can I plug one more thing? If
one more.
If people want to stay in touch with us or contact us, they can text 31996 and write the word reform.
31996 reform.
And then we can exchange emails.
Thank you so much. We're out of time. I'm so grateful for you to all being here. Thank you again. This is Jim Vredos. We'll see you again next week on The Radical Imagination.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Dogs on my trail, school children sitting in jail, black cat cross my path. I think every day's gonna be my last. Lord have mercy on this land of mine. We all gonna get it in due time. I don't belong here, I don't belong there. I've even stopped believing in prayer. Don't tell me, I'll tell you. Me and my people just about do. I've been there, so I know. They keep on saying go slow. That's what they say, go slow. That's what they say, go slow. That's what's the trouble. Slow. Washing the windows. Slow. Picking the cotton. Slow. We're nothing but rotten. Slow. We're too damn lazy. Slow. Our thinking's crazy. Slow. Where am I going? What am I doing? I don't know. I don't know. Just try to do your very best. Stand up, be counted with all the rest. picket line, school boycotts. They try to say it's a communist plot, but all I want is equality for my sister, my brother, my people, and me. My people and me. You lied to me all these years. You told me to wash and clean my ears and talk real fine, just like a lady. You'd stop calling me Sister Sadie. Oh, but my country's full of lies. We all gonna die and die like flies. 'Cause I don't trust nobody anymore. They keep on saying, go slow. Yeah, that's what they say. Go slow. Well, that's just the trouble.